It's the All Things Strange podcast. We are your hosts, Agent Anderson and
Agent Ether.
Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can find all of our wonderful links in the description on the Linktree, where you can find our Discord, our Patreon, our merchandise, and more. This week's episode, Last Christmas.
No.
A UFO took my heart?
No. Agent Anderson plays bass guitar and he likes to practice this specific song, Last Christmas. And I have heard it at this point literally like 200 times.
Everybody knows the song. I haven't played it 200 times. There's a counter on...
What does the counter say?
Well under 100.
Well under 100. Okay. But now I have to hear it on the radio too because it's Christmas time. So I am just subjected to this specific song, which I'm not a fan of anyways.
It's a good song. It's not my favorite, but actually the bass part is, I'm pretty new at bass. I'm not that good. So the bass part on this one it's a good tutorial kind of a thing. It's challenging enough for me to learn something, and it's not too hard to where I can't play it. So it's a good medium.
Now I know all the words. I could go do karaoke or something.
Yeah. And the hardest part about the song is that it has a lot of like eighth notes, just like constant notes, like da 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 over and over again. And it's easy to play, but actually playing them precisely isn't that easy. It's a little challenging. So, once you figure out how to play all the notes, that's when the real fun starts, because that's when you can get everything dialed in. But, getting it dialed in isn't necessarily the easiest thing. And that's why, you have to practice it a lot. That's how it works.
He uses this program to practice, and then at the end, it'll tell you how well you did in your performance. What does it say?
It says, good job.
Good job.
No, it says...
excellent performance.
Yeah.
Or flawless. Flawless performance.
You don't get flawless that often because... Well, it's weird. Sometimes it'll say I played all the notes correctly when I know for a fact I didn't. Other times it won't count notes that I played correctly, so I don't really worry about that stuff that much. It's more of like a learning tool. We're talking about it's called Rocksmith 2014 is the one I use, and it's a really fun program. It's good usually when you're learning guitar. For those of you who don't play an instrument, oftentimes people will just play along with the radio or a recording of their favorite songs and kind of learn that way. And it's kind of like that, but it does show you the notes as you go, so it's more convenient than trying to read off of some sketchy tabs that you found online or whatever.
It's kind of like Guitar Hero.
Yeah, it's like Guitar Hero, but with a real guitar. It's really fun. I enjoy it. And I don't really particularly want to go on tour with an actual band, so it's fun to sort of play an instrument and you don't have to worry about, we're playing with other people, because for bass guitar, I'm probably not that good yet to play with other people.
You can pretend you're in the band.
Yeah, exactly. See?
Who's the group that does that song?
Last Christmas?
Yeah.
That's Wham.
Wham. You can pretend you're in Wham.
Yeah, that's George Michael. His first band was Wham.
So 80s.
Yeah, they've done a lot of... Well, I don't know if they're popular these days, but you would definitely know who they were if you're my age. All right. Well, enough about Last Christmas.
You're the one who titled this podcast episode Last Christmas.
Yeah, because I'm doing UFO sightings from last Christmas.
Okay, I'm doing UFO sightings from Christmases long, long ago.
Yeah, so it works out. It has nothing to do with the song.
He's trolling me. He's totally trolling
Nothing to do
me.
with the song at all. It's just a coincidence that I'm doing last. Because the thing is, I'm looking at New Fork here for the sightings, and they don't necessarily release their sightings in real time. They put a delay on there, I'm guessing, so that they don't have copycats or hoaxers claiming to have seen something. So there's a delay on there, and today's sightings are probably not out yet. We're recording this on Christmas, and it's just a fun little... This is not like a super serious episode. We're just kind of having fun here and doing a little bonus Christmas deal, but it's going to be released to everybody. It's not just for our bonus feed. And, speaking of, we do have Patreon. We have 2 tiers. We got the first tier, which will get you everything, including bonus, after hours when available, all that kind of stuff, bonus episodes, whatever. And then
we just did a recent bonus episode together.
Yeah, we did. Strange News.
Number 17.
Number 17, where we were talking about, I was going to do a UFO topic this week for a bonus episode, but I saw a news article that was talking about an FA-18 that got shot down by a missile boat. It was friendly fire, and that reminded me of TWA 800, which I did an episode on previously. So it kind of got me interested in that, and I wanted to do that article this week. So I did a bunch of articles, and it was a fun time.
So, Agent Anderson, what is the difference between NUFORC and MUFON?
Well, NUFORC is a publicly available database of UFO sightings with no paywall. MUFON is a paywalled UFO sightings database that's extremely difficult to navigate. Their search tools are not very good. As I navigate it, they're constantly kicking me off the website and I have to re-log in. It's just, I did pay for a MUFON membership so I could look at their database, and I gotta say, not impressed. It's not that easy to navigate. And stuff that's supposed to be in their database is not in the database. Why? I don't know. But for instance, I looked in there for the Michigan 1994 sightings. That's pretty much why I signed up for it. And there were supposed to be, I mean, I have an article and I have other things that reference, hundreds of sightings pouring into MUFON, and yet none of those sightings are in their database. They have like 1 or 2.
That's very frustrating.
It's weird. So I don't know where those sightings went. They're gone. And there's also like reference to videos and things that are nowhere to be found. I emailed them asking them where the videos were, and MUFON never got back to me.
That is a shame.
Not even a, we are sorry, we don't have that form letter, like a generic letter. I got no response whatsoever.
Nothing like, we'll get back to you, or inundated with requests right now. Nothing.
Or we just don't have it, or that's not what we do here. Thanks anyways. Like nothing at all. So I'm a fan of NUFORC because it's publicly available. Anything we talk about, you can go look up for yourself. It's real easy to navigate their website. They have a world map where you can look at locations. They have a database where you can sort by date. You can sort by object shape. So if you're looking for triangle sightings in the Los Angeles area in the year 2012, you can do that. It's really, really easy to navigate. It's a really awesome website. And whereas MUFON, if you search for something, it even limits the number of results you get back. It only gives you back, 10 or 20 results. And if you're looking for a mass sighting, that's just not enough. That's not going to cut it. So, it costs money. I don't like it. I don't like their navigation, and I don't like the paywall. They have a lot of great stuff on the website, like videos that they produce, and they have their monthly MUFON magazine that they put out, and that kind of stuff. I don't mind paying for that stuff because it takes a lot of work. But for a sightings database where the public submits sightings, I think that should be publicly available. I don't think that should be paywalled. The other stuff, fine, paywall it. That's all content that they create. But all right, let's get to it. NUFORC sighting from last Christmas. Now, I'm including the 24th and the 25th because Christmas Eve is generally considered part of the holiday, so I'm doing, a 2-day range. There weren't a ton of sightings last year, but there were some interesting ones, so let's get to it. The first one I have is from the 24th at 8 o'clock in the morning local time from Vadodara, V-A-D-O-D, Vadodara, from Vadodara, Gujarat, India. So a sighting from India. I thought that was pretty cool. The location details, it was a park with trees, but not around me at the time. It's open space. The weather was clear. So this one is obviously a non-native English speaker, so I'm going to try to read this in a way that's easy for everybody to understand. But apologies for that. But I still appreciate them submitting this report to NUFORC in a foreign language. For them, it would be. So that's pretty cool that we have access to this sighting, even though it happened in India. All right, the object was an oval shape, a white color with a black shine. Now, that's a really interesting description. That's kind of what caught my attention for this particular sighting. And just as an aside, I'm not going over every single sighting on there. Some of them look like mundane objects like airplanes or meteors that are mistaken for UFOs. And some of them even have photographs and videos. And I saw those and looked at the photographs, watched the videos, and some of them were not super convincing. But so I'm not doing all of them. But this one was an interesting sighting. Oh, anyways, the UFO was estimated size was around 1 kilometer long and 400 meters wide. So we're talking about a big UFO here. They saw it from the land to the northwest at an angle of elevation of 47 degrees, and they feel that they were less than 100 kilometers from the object, and that it was going about 300 kilometers per hour. The object had an aura or haze around it, and also electrical or magnetic effects, and says possible abduction, whatever that means. All right, here we go to the description. I saw a flying object without any lights, came towards land slowly with huge size, then moved to the other side suddenly with a slow, steady pace. That's sort of a summary description. Now here is the witness statement. I saw a flying object without any lights. It came towards land slowly. It was huge in size, and then it suddenly started moving away from my view and got smaller. It's been morning and sunlight also. I'm not sure what they mean by that. It was a long oval shape and had a black shine. Please help me find out what this was. But these all things can never specify their origin because it was morning time. I'm not sure what they mean by that. And I can clearly see it came towards land at a steady pace and then started moving to the other side. And then I thought to chase it. It disappeared and it was gone far away from my sight. And I'm guessing they mean like in an instant.
So it's morning and there's sunlight.
Yeah, but it also had a black shine, but it's morning and it's sunlight. Do they mean that the sun was reflecting off of it? I'm
That's
not
what
sure.
It sounds like, but that it was black.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's an interesting description. And because of the language barrier, it's not entirely clear, but an object that size, that's still a pretty cool sighting. I love doing these sightings because you get to do a bunch of them instead of just one case. It's a lot of fun. All right, Aging Ether, would you like to do some Blue Book stuff?
Oh, sure.
We can switch off here.
Let me click on over. You might want to click that. Okay. So I looked at Blue Book files during the Cold War, and I focused on Alaska.
All right.
And the reason I did that is there's a lot of tension right now between us and other countries and Russia. And it has always fascinated me how close Alaska is to Russia. Like, you don't think about the United States being close to Russia, but from peninsula to peninsula, it's a mere 53 miles across the Bering Strait in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean.
I mean, you could swim that if you wanted to, assuming you didn't die of hypothermia.
Yeah, it would be very cold
Yeah.
and also illegal. But however, if you look at the islands near these peninsulas, you have Little Diomede, which belongs to the United States, and you have Big Diomede, which is part of Russia, and they're separated by 2.4 miles or 3.8 kilometers. There's an international dateline or IDL that separates the two islands, so they are also referred to as Tomorrow Island and Yesterday Island, because Tomorrow Island, which is the big one, is 21 hours ahead of Yesterday Isle, even though they're only 2.4 miles away from one another.
Oh, weird. That's really cool.
Yeah, and in the winter, there's actually like this, the ice freezes over in the ocean and there's an ice bridge. So sometimes this area is referred to as the ice curtain, especially during the Cold War.
Okay.
So just a little background there that I found interesting. Nothing that has to do with UFOs. I was just like, that's really cool.
No, that's super interesting. I often get bogged down in details like that because they're just so much fun to read about.
Now, because of the proximity and the Cold War, with Russia, there are actually 9 military bases in Alaska, which gives us an opportunity to look at a lot of sightings and radar returns in the area in Project Blue Book. So I wanted to take a look at the files and see if there was any interesting information that was released and declassified. So, of course, it took a little bit of hunting, like it always does, but I turned up a flap.
Good old Flappy Poo.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is it was all over the place. It wasn't files that were located in one area that had been scanned. I really had to hunt for them, and they skipped around a lot. So I had to find them in different parts of Fold 3.
Yeah, the files in there aren't necessarily well organized, so sometimes you have to hunt around for stuff, but it's worth it.
Well, and the record cards actually referred to the other cases, but the other cases were tucked away somewhere else.
Yeah, and that can happen because it looks like what they did was they used a machine to automatically read the information off the title cards. So if it doesn't correctly read that information, it'll just say illegible or date unknown, and they'll file it under that. So you're not necessarily going to find it where you think it's going to be found.
But luckily, on Fold 3 Blue Book files, you can search through the PDF, and it looks for words that match. So if it is legible, then you might be able to find it.
Right.
So it's looking for key words in PDF documents.
Really powerful tool.
Very powerful. So it won't read like script, but if it's typed like a date, it can pull it up pretty easily.
Yeah.
So I started off with a record card or summary of the case. This is the first thing I found when I was looking around Christmas, around the time of the Cold War. So it's December 10th, 1952 at the Ladd Air Force Base in Alaska. There's an air visual sighting by a fighter pilot, and here his name is redacted. The sighting lasted over a period of 3 to 4 seconds. There was a bluish light that streaked in front of and above the aircraft, traveling at a very high speed, much faster than the jet. The data was deemed important enough to be forwarded to the CIA the next day, even though the case card said that it was probably a meteor.
Yeah, it's a meteor. It's nothing, but we'll let the CIA know about it anyways.
Right. It was larger and more visible than any star, and the color ranged from white and then a bluish light. The pages refer to the observers then as multiple. So the report card in the front is very generic. It just has this pilot as an observer. It says it's a meteor, and then you start going through the classified files.
Ooh, classified files.
Classified files that have since been declassified, and there were actually several observers, including the co-pilot and land sightings, land-to-air sightings. So the pages refer to the aircraft as a DC-3, flying at an altitude of 9,000 feet. One observer saw the object for 10 seconds before it disappeared without a tail or a trace. So those were the captain and co-pilot. So one of them saw it for 3 or 4 seconds. The other one saw it for 10 seconds. There was another co-pilot on the flight deck, but he didn't actually see the object, but he saw the two observers, the captain and the co-pilot, turn their heads in the direction of the object as it passed overhead. The weather was clear at -18 Fahrenheit with low winds. No meteorological data was found at the time. The pilot calls the tower immediately and asks to see if there was any other sighting, which was negative, according to the tower. The next few pages are a transcript of interviews with the pilot. So again, it's just a meteor, nothing important, but we're going to send this to the CIA, and then we're going to send people out to interview everybody about this sighting.
I love it when you get you don't always find that, but I love it when you have the actual transcripts of the interview. That's such good information.
It really is. Let's see. The crew that saw it the other night might be able to give a better description, it starts off with. So that is the pilot telling the person who's interviewing him, because he asks, tell me about this object. And now he's saying there was crew on the ground that also saw this object. He says since they saw it below overcast skies, they can give an idea about the size and shape of the craft. So this seems kind of conflicting with the report card.
The cards often do not match what's in the file. It's really, really often.
So the transcript continues. I saw something similar a year and a half previously over Northway. It was also reported from the ground, exactly as described here, and when it disappeared, it was sudden and not a fade. Overall, the impression was, quote, first, that it was going like hell, which I assume he means the speed.
Yeah.
So it's going like hell. It's going really fast. He says, it really amazed me, and I've never seen anything like it before. It was just horizontal and fast. So here's a pilot. They're dismissing all his years of experience, the fact that he's saying he's never seen anything like it before, and they're calling it a meteor.
Maybe it was literally a meteor.
What do you mean?
That's a type of jet.
Oh. I don't think that's the case.
I know. I'm just kidding.
The interviewer asks if they were given instructions to report this or other sightings, and both the captain and co-pilot replied that they weren't, and they didn't call it in to other people on the ground because they didn't want to cause confusion, but 5 or 6 people on the ground saw the same thing, so it has to be something.
Right. It's not nothing.
And then one of the other pilots, the co-pilot, says he saw something similar in Elmendorf a few years ago, and I think that's a base in Germany.
It sounds sort of German, yeah.
He said back then, a year and a half ago, he saw at about 300 feet, and he said, quote, everybody must have seen that one. It looked like a cigar with little windows in it and 15 turbos sticking out of the back of it. The officers up in the tower were looking at it with glasses. So these pilots have experience with these types of objects before, and this is a cigar-shaped object, which is actually something different.
Yeah.
But not unheard of.
No, cigar-shaped objects are extremely common. And I wonder if, like, for example, if you see a flying saucer edge-wise, if that could look like a cigar shape. I mean, sometimes I wonder if we're seeing the similar objects from different angles.
But with windows, a lot of times you do not hear craft described as having windows.
Yeah, it's not unheard of. There are cases with windows, but it's not typical.
So the interviewer posed a question, what was your overall impression the other night? And the pilot said at first they all thought it might be a missile, but there was no trail.
Not a missile.
Not a missile. The pilot had been flying in this specific area for 5 or 6 years, but he hadn't seen anything in this area before. And then the interview ends. That's the end of the case notes. Again, meteor.
Right.
So I looked around at similar dates, and I had this like, what the hell kind of moment, because there were tons of sightings around this time from bases in the area. Did you want me to go over that too?
Yeah, why not?
Because it kind of flows.
Let's do it.
Okay. So December 8th, there's a record card again from the Ladd Air Force Base for a sighting that lasts 10 minutes. So this is the same year, a few days prior. This might be why the CIA got involved, because it was a flap. There wasn't just one occurrence.
Right. And if you don't know what these things are, you have to consider that they could be a foreign technology, in which case you have to take it seriously.
So here you have a pilot and radar observation.
Oh, nice. I love the radar observations.
And it was too long for a meteor, and there were no aircraft in the area. It was described by the pilot as white and oval in shape, an object traveling at noticeable speed at 240 degrees at 2,000 feet. The light changed from white to red as it gained altitude at 160 degrees. It gained speed, and then it suddenly dropped to the earth like a falling star. There was a plane called the Starfire being flown by Donald Diekman, and the radar observer on the base was Thomas Davies. The pilot was approaching for landing when Davies called the pilot's attention to the object. So it was actually the radar observer who got a ping on his radar, and then he called the pilot's attention to it, and he asked for a visual confirmation. So the F-94 is heading at 60 degrees and the object's at 240 degrees. In the next 30 to 45 seconds, the object increased in speed, so the F-94 turned to follow. From the position of the base to the area of the target, it seemed to fall very erratically. It was not easily seen due to conditions, darkness, etc., so they couldn't make out any more detail than it was sort of an oval shape with light. There was no sound. The downward descent was described as similar to a helicopter. They thought the light becoming more and more red might have something to do with atmospheric conditions, but they did not say why. The report says there were also seen by the ground crew at this point, and included in the report are sketches of the flight path and multiple maps of the area, including the Air Force Base. Next, we have Air Intelligence Information Report. It mentions this sighting and another on December 11th. The synopsis gives us witness statements, such as Davies said he kept the object in sight except during takeoff and landing of the plane. The object observed was half the size of a landing light, and it changed in its distance to and from the Air Force Base. So at one point it was 1/2 to 1 mile away, but at its furthest approach, it was 200 to 1,000 yards away.
That's not super far.
It is not. Witnesses were called in the report reliable and experienced. That would be the pilot and the radar operator.
Okay.
After the landing, visual contact was established with the object before it disappeared and dived behind the buildings. The radar operator called the tower, but they said there were no nearby aircraft. Weird. The next page says it actually landed or that it was on the ground. It's not very clear, and then it behaved erratically and then took off again. And here I just copied and pasted. This was interesting. It's what actually happened step by step. So this is the end of the report. It's a summary card. So it's what happened with the aircraft, what happened with the object. So the aircraft, its speed was 250 knots. This is the location of the jet when the object was first sighted at point A. And there's a map. And A was a distance of 200 yards, the closest point between the aircraft and the object at point B, which is drawn on the map. The map was actually supposed to be color-coded, but unfortunately, it's just a black and white copy, and it's very hard to see. Still, there's something in there, and it's very interesting. The radar observer resumed observation after touchdown. The observer had taken his eyes away from the object during final approach and touchdown of the jet. He continued observation during taxi of the aircraft to the parking strip, and after climbing from the left, at this time again, the pilot's attention was directed towards it looked. So the object itself was first seen at a distance from 200 to 1,000 yards, traveling at 100 knots, white in color. The object gained noticeable speed, approximately that of a fast jet, still white in color. There was then erratic movements in straight lines, colors changing from white to red, and then it refers to the map, different points on the map, C and D. The object climbed at a much faster rate than the jet, moving in a straight line in a south by southeast direction. The climb rate was excessive. The color turned more red than white, and at its apex, it appeared red. It stopped, accelerating momentarily in a slight northeastern directional movement, and it proceeded on in a southerly course faster than the jet, rapidly descending to point E, still red in hue. It appeared to stop momentarily, then descended on a comparatively slower rate of speed, extreme red in color, becoming brighter and larger as the descent was ended. And
Wow.
that is all that is included in that report.
There are some similarities to other cases. For instance, some of the objects seen during the 1966 Michigan swamp gas flap.
Really?
Yeah. Particularly the color, the turning red and stuff like that.
There was a lot of details included in this report. Some of them you could read, some of them you could not. But overall, I think I got the gist of what was in the report. And I thought it was super interesting. Both of these reports were super interesting. And then there was one more, not a lot of information, but it was still tucked in there. December 6th, so a few days before that, there's a project record card where a pilot saw and followed two shiny globes connected by a solid red until they disappeared into the sun. So this was a daytime sighting. The rear view presented a flattened appearance that speed was at 150 knots at a height of 2,000 feet. This was in Angoon, Alaska, by a coastal pilot in the National Guard, and the conclusion was a balloon.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a balloon to me.
Yeah. So a little flap there. I found it very exciting right before Christmas time, 1952, all up in your business in Alaska.
Yeah, 1952 is one of the busiest years on Blue Book. I'd have to double check that. It might be the busiest year. But there was definitely a spike in sightings that year. And I would be curious to look at sightings in other places outside of Alaska to see if people were seeing similar objects, because I'm willing to bet they were.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
But only so much time in the day.
Yeah, it is Christmas, and we didn't have a ton of time. We just recorded some other stuff, and we didn't have a ton of time to prep for this episode. We wanted to do just a fun little Christmas recording here, because we're at home most of the day today, just kind of chilling out.
Eating Chinese food.
Yeah, we did get some Chinese food, and we wanted to do some, just a fun little recording here. But I mean, that sounds like a really interesting flap. I bet if you looked into it further, you'd find some really cool stuff in the files and outside of the files.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. When I was looking through the files, less than 15 people had viewed the same cards as I was looking at.
Yeah, it's really kind of disappointing that the stuff that's covered by the media tends to be more sensational stuff, and that gets people interested in cases like, let's say, the Bob Lazar case that doesn't necessarily have he presents evidence, but he also presents a lot of lies. It's a very controversial case, rather than stuff that's actually less controversial and has better evidence for it. There's so many good cases in the Blue Book files. I wish they were covered more regularly, but hey, more for me, right?
We can be greedy.
Yeah.
Do them all.
All mine. Dude, I would love to do a show, maybe do like a live stream where we just sit down and look at Blue Book files. That'd be cool. Like a Friday night live stream or something. It was kind of chill. That'd be really fun. All right. Well, is that what you had for your flap?
That's what I got.
All right. Let's move on to another New Fork sighting. 181836. This one occurred on the 24th of last year, 2023, 12/24 at 20:30 local time. Lasted about a half an hour and had one observer. And this one happened in Long Branch, New Jersey, United States. There's, the whole drone thing is still going on. I just saw, when I was waiting for the Chinese food takeout, I literally just saw somebody posting videos of more drones. So that is still happening. I don't know about the ones in the UK. That we haven't heard much about those since the New Jersey drones started. But the stuff in New Jersey is still going on. I posted a link from New Fork that has an article about it, actually. I posted that in the Discord. So check that out if you're interested. But all right, let's get to this one. The shape was a rectangle a white-gray color, and they estimate the size to be 30 to 50 feet wide by 15 to 30 feet across. They saw it in an easterly direction at an elevation of 75 degrees, and they believe it was about 500 feet away. That's really close. They think the speed was about 400 miles an hour. There were lights on the object, and it had an aura or haze. And here is their description. While walking my dog at approximately 8:30 on Christmas Eve, I saw two rectangular craft flying. I saw them at least 4 points during the walk. One craft had 3 red lights on the bottom, the other had 2 green lights. The lights were evenly spaced in a line across the center bottom of the crafts. At one point, the craft with the red lights was flying in a straight line above me, and it stopped on a dime for a few seconds and then shot off in the opposite direction at an angle. At another point, while walking back home, I witnessed a large green stationary light slowly blinking in the bottom of the clouds. When getting back to my door and taking at least one look before entering the house, I saw the craft with the green lights flying fairly low and steady in an easterly direction over Cedar Avenue. This last view of the object was probably the closest. The object didn't appear to look metallic. It looked almost like a ceramic material. At this point, I went inside and told my fiancé what I had seen. Also, there were no propellers, jets, or visible means of propulsion, and no sound. I did not have my phone/camera on me at the time, and even if I did, I may have been too awestruck to think to use it. Not sure if this is related, but for approximately 2 weeks afterwards, I saw a flashing green orb on several occasions. I did get video of this, but it may be unrelated and or a drone. So that's an interesting sighting. It bears a little bit of resemblance to our current drone sighting. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. Agent Ether, would you like to do the next one?
Sure, we have a case. It looks like it's back in 2023 on Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
The time was 8:40 local, so I'm assuming that's in the evening. The duration was 5 minutes, and there were 2 people in Lander, Wyoming in the U.S. They were on the hill from the mountains at Sinks Canyon or Rosewood. They saw something in the shape of a circle and white, at least the size of a minivan. It was viewed from the land facing east at an angle of 49 degrees. The closest distance, they weren't sure about. It was really high in the sky, and the speed was at least as fast as a jet. There were lights on the object and an aura or haze about it. It kept lighting up bright, then dimming until invisible. It would disappear and reappear, changing directions a lot, and multiple appeared at once. Does that mean multiple ships? Because I'm pretty sure they said it was one.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
It sounds like they saw multiple objects.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're right. It does. A first one came over the mountains on the horizon. It was super bright and moved very upwards fast. Then it dimmed until it could not be seen. Around 30 seconds later, it reappeared, then did the same thing again. The next time it reappeared, another was next to it and following it. They were moving from one direction to the other and following each other, both bright. One dimmed, and then the other did too. The final time, there were 3, and the exact events happened again, taking a little longer each time. Everything was strangely silent for being out in the middle of the country. And that's the end of that report.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't know what to make of it. A lot of these don't really have enough information to really evaluate them, but they're still really cool sightings. All right, and we got one more here that I got in my notes. This is New Fork sighting 179910. This one happened on the December 25th, 2023. So another sighting from last Christmas.
No comment.
The duration of the sighting was 1 minute. There were 2 observers, and this happened in Marblehead, Massachusetts, United States.
Whenever that's abbreviated, we have 50 states.
Yeah.
So sometimes you really have to think for a second about that abbreviation. And you're like, which state is that? Like the last one was WY. And I was like, what state is that?
What's why? Yeah.
What is it?
Actually, wait, is MA, is that Massachusetts?
I'm pretty sure it's Massachusetts.
Or is it Maryland? Let me
No,
see.
Maryland's like MY.
Is it? Let me see. Let me look it up.
Okay.
MA.
See? Now I've like
USA.
freaked you out, so you have to double check.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Maryland is MY.
Yeah, it's a lot of them to remember, especially if you don't mail stuff there very often.
And you have to remember where they are on the map.
Yeah.
You know, you have a bunch of states, and some of them are in the middle, and some of them are like, oh, it's up there in the north somewhere, like Montana. You're like, I don't want to move there. It gets cold. It's
Yeah.
up north.
It's easy to get some of these things mixed up. All right. So the object was a chevron shaped object.
What's chevron?
Chevron is, like a sergeant's patch,
No.
like an upside down V.
Oh, okay.
Like the gas station.
Yes.
It's just like sort of like a V,
Mhm.
but a V is sort of like a sharp angle. Chevron would be a more shallow angle.
Okay.
Or, like a flying wing aircraft, you could say was a chevron shape. So the witness was on the beach looking in the direction of the Boston Harbor. The object was white, about 150 feet in size, and they saw it from the land at an angle of 45 degrees elevation. The closest distance was 5 to 10, no unit given there, 5 to 10 centimeters, inches,
Seconds.
miles. We don't know. Estimated speed, varied speeds. It zigzagged in an ascent quickly. The characteristics, aura or haze around the object. Pretty common on Christmas last year, I guess. Odd, cloud-like, chevron shape, vibrated, flickered, and disappeared. All right, you ready? This one's weird.
Okay.
We were watching the sunset on the beach, and it was dusk. It had gotten fairly dark except for some orange light in the west. We were looking southwest from the beach toward the direction of Boston Harbor and the South Shore. I said aloud, "Darn it, I never did see a UFO from this beach." An inside joke because you can see so much sky and lots of planes from Logan Airport from this vantage point. Not 5 seconds later, I see a gray chevron-like cloud formation over Boston Harbor, the only cloud in the sky, or so we thought. It was a very weird shape. It looked sort of like a cloud, but also it was an odd shape for a cloud, and it was all alone and just hovering very still. I said to my partner, "Wait, what is that?" We watched it for a while, and he said, "It's a cloud, but it's changing shape." This thing was staying in the same place but rapidly changing shape, almost vibrating, in impossible ways, and so quickly that we could hardly process what we were seeing. At one point, it stretched long into a line, like a cigar, and then it flickered back into the chevron shape, and then it kept sort of centralizing into this dot, expanding out, etc. My partner, who was very skeptical, said, "A cloud can't move that fast." It was moving so fast and flickering that it was like a blur. I said to him, "It's trying to disappear," because it was sort of flickering, fading in place, and consolidating into this weird dot, and then it completely disappeared from the sky. My partner is very skeptical, and he said he has no explanation for what it was, has never seen anything like it.
Ooh.
What do you make of that one?
Weird cloud formations.
Sounds to me like somebody's goofing around with space-time.
Let's fold a little space-time and make these clouds change shape.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that one. It's a really weird description, but if you think about some craft with some sort of bizarre propulsion that could bend space-time or whatever, like the Alcubierre drive, who knows what that would look like to a ground observer, right?
Yeah.
If you're bending space-time around the object. And we have the theory to do that, so who knows? Maybe they've done it. I mean, that theory was published in the 90s, and this happened last year, so who's to say that we don't have something to do with this? And if it's not us, could be somebody else. Or who knows? Maybe they were just on drugs. I don't know.
Mushrooms or something.
It's such a weird description. No, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, though. They didn't say anywhere in the description that we had just dropped a bunch of acid or anything like that. But all right, so that's all we got for you this time. Any final thoughts on these UFO sightings, Agent Ether?
Well, I had a lot of fun. We did a little mix here, modern and old school.
Yeah, I love doing these ones where you get to talk about a whole bunch of different sightings. A lot of fun. All right, well, that's all we got for you this time. Happy holidays, and until next time,
Keep it strange.